I did the night shift at a convenience store because I was strapped for cash and needed a second job. I worked the night shift there for a few months, and it was around my second or third month that this guy started regularly coming in really late at night, always around 2 a.m. He was about 6 feet tall, had long, stringy hair, and he'd always come in, buy a tall boy, and leave. After a while, one night he asked me my name. I told him my name was Jake, and he just kept repeating, "Jake, I like that," while laughing to himself. He cracked open the tall boy he just bought and walked out of the store, talking to himself. He was clearly hammered. That night, I got curious to see if he'd been drinking and driving. Every single time he'd come to the store, I noticed he walked off the property without buying gas, so it made sense. He never once bought gas. Anytime he came in, he only bought alcohol. I saw him just about every night after that for a while. Some nights, he was noticeably drunker than others. Sometimes, he'd just lean on one of the shelves for a while, not saying anything. He always greeted me with a slurred, "Hey Jake," when he came in. One night, he was leaning on a shelf, drinking the tall boy he'd just bought, not saying anything, just staring at a wall. I finally asked for his name. He looked at me for what felt like 5 seconds before saying, "Bill." Now, I've always felt like Bill was the kind of name you give when you're lying, so I wondered if he'd just come up with it because it rhymed with my name, but I went with it. I asked, "So, Bill, where do you work?" He laughed so loud it startled me. Then he said he didn't work, that the government had completely screwed him out of his job. He gave off the vibe that he was drunk again. He looked at me with an angry expression, then suddenly said, "I like you, Jake. You seem like you know what you're doing." I had no idea what that was supposed to mean, but after that, he walked out of the store. I didn't see him again for a while. Over a week passed, which was a long time for a regular like him. Bill always gave me this mild, creepy vibe, and I figured something was wrong in his personal life, but I didn't think too much of it. One stormy night, with fewer customers than usual because of the bad weather, I heard the familiar ding of the door. Without looking, I just knew it was Bill. When I glanced over, I was shocked. It was him, but it was like a much scarier version of him. He was completely soaked, not wearing a rain jacket or carrying an umbrella. He had on a dark shirt and jeans, and his long hair was drenched. He stood by the door, staring straight ahead at the wall, looking like he was angry but lost in his thoughts at the same time. His blank, soaked appearance was freaking me out. I called out, "Bill, are you okay?" He didn't turn his head or move. He just stood there and said, "I did something really bad." I nervously asked, "What did you do?" He finally looked at me, said, "I need somewhere to hide," and then walked past me towards the small restroom hallway. He disappeared behind the wall, and I heard one of the doors open and close. At that point, I was genuinely uncomfortable with Bill. His presence in the store had never been enjoyable, but tonight, something was extra off about him. He seemed like a zombie, and his "I did something really bad" comment was deeply unsettling. A good amount of time passed, and Bill never came out of the restroom. I assumed he was passed out or puking, but I didn't want to intervene. Then, the lights in the store suddenly went out, and everything was pitch dark. I was standing in a dark gas station during a storm, with an unhinged drunk guy somewhere in the building. I grabbed the flashlight from behind the counter and made my way towards the back of the store where the inventory storage and the panel board were located. The back door was in the same hallway as the restrooms. As I walked by, I noticed both restroom doors were ajar, and Bill wasn't in either of them. I went through the door to the back. I was planning on going straight to the panel board to check the power, but I stopped when I heard a faint dripping sound and the squeaking of wet shoes. My heart sank. I said, "Bill," in a weak and scared voice. I heard more squeaks coming from my left. When I pointed the flashlight in that direction, there was Bill standing there with his eyes wide open. Suddenly, he lunged at me and started screaming, "I'm gonna expletive kill you." I pushed him off as he clawed at my back and bolted through the door towards the front of the store. He didn't follow. I grabbed my rain jacket and ran straight to my car, locking myself inside as I dialed 911. I stayed on the line with the operator, and it didn't take long for a couple of police officers to arrive. They went inside the store with me, and Bill was still hiding in the back room, huddled in a corner like some kind of wild animal. His pupils were huge. I only noticed then that he was probably on something. The police took him to the station after I told them he lunged at me, threatened to kill me, and said he'd done something terrible earlier. About a month later, I found out that Bill's real name was Martin, and he had brutally beaten his ex-wife to death, likely on the same night he came into the store. After that night, I never wanted to work another night shift at any job ever again. I've done a lot of night driving in my life, not for work or anything. My old group of friends and I would always stay out until ridiculous hours when we were in our late teens and early 20s. I guess you could say we were kind of aimless. We thought staying out until 5 a.m. every weekend, hanging at parks or just loitering in parking lots was cool. Looking back, it was a dumb waste of time. But because of that, I've done more than my fair share of driving in the middle of the night. That's usually when the drunk or sketchy people are out on the roads. It was a weekend night, and it must have been close to 4 in the morning. I was tired and ready to go home. After dropping one of my friends off from the park where we'd been hanging out, I realized I needed to stop for gas before heading home. I used to like stopping for gas at night because there'd be no cars around, no one to slow me down. So I pulled into one of my usual stations just a few minutes away from my parents' house. As I walked toward the building to pay, I noticed this short guy wearing a hoodie walking in my direction. He stopped dead in his tracks and stared me down as I passed by him. I glanced at him and said, "What?" before continuing to walk. He didn't say anything back. I figured he was just another cracked out dude, so I brushed it off. Inside, I paid for the gas and bought a lottery ticket just for the hell of it. When I came back outside, I started to fill up my car. It was a ghost town just like I expected. No cars, no people. Once the tank was full, I got back in the car and started driving home. I was halfway home when I heard something behind me. It was a subtle sound like shifting or breathing. When I glanced in my rearview mirror, I froze. There was someone sitting in the back seat, staring at me. It was the guy from the gas station. I let out a scream so loud I thought my lungs might explode. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I immediately slammed on the brakes. I yelled, "Get out," over and over again as I fumbled with the door handle, trying to get out of the car. I got out and started screaming for help, hoping someone would hear me. Luckily, a few porch lights flickered on, and I saw doors opening up on the nearby houses. The guy got out of my car, and as he was backing away, he said in this calm, chilling voice, "I could have slit your throat." As soon as he said that, he bolted down the street. I didn't chase after him. I wasn't about to go after some random creep who had been hiding in my back seat. A few people came out of their houses and rushed over to check on me. I explained what had just happened, that this stranger had somehow gotten into my car and scared the life out of me. By the time I told them what happened, the guy was long gone, out of sight. There was no way I was going to drive around looking for him. I thanked the people who came out to help and finally made my way home, making sure to check my rearview mirror every few seconds to be certain he wasn't following me. That was, without a doubt, the scariest experience of my life.